Volume's on. Let's see. Are we live? Hello, everybody. And we're back. So I just, first question, can anybody hear me? I don't hear myself, so I don't know if my voice is getting to you. Can somebody just say, hi, I hear you, or we know you're here? Great, good, thanks, guys. Okay, I can see it. I can hear you loud and clear, fantastic. Okay, just to let you know where I'm at, I've got a studio that I operate out of, do all my creative stuff in. It's got a great energy. I get really inspired when I come in here. You can see I've got a lot of things around me. I wish I could turn the computer around. I've got an amazing view southward towards the River Thames in Buckinghamshire. So just between, I guess, just outside of London, you could say northwest, about 15 minutes on the road up towards Oxford. So that's where I'm at the moment. Been here for quite a while now, and still haven't been able to change my accent to the English accent. So although I'm, permanently here, I still haven't been able to pick up the accent from this area. So great spot to work. It's very, like I said, close to London, which is a vibrant metropolis in terms of being connected with creativity, and it gives me a real good hub to base the studio out of. And things have moved on since I moved away from McLaren, and it allows me now to be connected to the whole world in terms of being able to work on different projects. And I'm really excited. A lot of you know me from the profession that I've been in over those last 30 years, the car design profession. But I have to say, it's just as exciting now as it's ever been for me in the industry, because I'm doing a lot of different projects where I can take that experience from the automotive industry and shift it over to a whole nother design field or fields of design. And there's a lot to learn that you can transfer. There's a technology transfer from designing supercars, hypercars, and move it over into the world of product design. So I'm really enjoying that, and feels great to be able to free yourself up and not really have a direct boss and be able to do things the way you feel, the way your gut feels, actually. So a lot of the instinct that you learn over this many years of designing can really be brought to reality by just being your own boss. So there's a lot to be said for that. So many questions that I'm seeing pop up, and thank you so many people for joining in. I'm completely shocked by what I'm seeing here. Sorry for being a little bit late, but we had to set up at the last minute some of the things that we had to get ready for the live chat. And obviously there's going to be a lot of people coming in from different countries. So if you're from a Latin American speaking country, si hablas español, también hablo de español y puedo responder bastante bien. Ich kann auch auf Deutsch die Antworten geben, so keine Sorge. Let me see what else. Senza problemi, se vuoi parlare in italiano posso anche rispondere in quella bella lingua. Comunque, anyway, the most important thing is I want to thank you all, obviously, for making this not only such a success, because I've been, again, pretty blown away by the amount of people who are starting to subscribe and have been subscribing over the last few episodes. So it's pretty fun to be able to communicate with you guys. And I'm sorry for not being able to give you direct feedback, but this is the chance now that I've set aside from a kind of busy schedule to sit and check out all your questions, the important ones, and we'll give you some responses. So I've got a bit of help on the side here. One of my great friends, Kane Chatty, very talented in the field of making these videos what they are. You can tell that the production quality is something a little bit unusual for this kind of production. So I'm really grateful for Kane to do it. But again, super, super, super thankful for all you guys who are subscribing, and continue, please, because the channel is going to just grow and grow and grow. I'm going to keep it obviously tuned into design and the design aesthetic approach to not just cars, but all kinds of products. So that's going to be fun, expanding the channel in those directions. And I'm looking forward to a lot of your feedbacks and what direction you think we should take for any other ideas you might have. So I'd be happy to grow with you guys on this channel. And again, from the bottom of my heart, many, many thanks to all of you for subscribing. It's going to be a fun journey. I don't see an end to it because I could just keep imagining new ways to extend the videos, and just jump on. We're going to have a fun ride. And I think each video you see will get better than the last. It's just that much fun that we're putting into the energy of making this thing a little bit different than what the normal YouTubes on the internet are showing. And again, keep giving me your feedback. We'll keep an eye on the feedback in such a way that we can reflect it into the video, so that everybody's happy. And again, I'm happy doing these videos. So one last thing, let's get to the questions. And I think we got plenty of time. I'm not going anywhere. I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck in the middle of nowhere out here, and all I have to do after this is sleep. So lockdown is kind of cool. I enjoy it. So if we start feeding in questions, Kane is going to be on the side of this behind the camera, and he's going to be helping me to find those questions that we think will respond to most of your interests, and those questions which I feel that are probably going to answer mostly what everybody is kind of asking. So first question, I'm so thankful to you. This has come from Angel Sabrano, Spanish name, but speaks English very well. I'm so thankful to you, Frank. I'm loving all your videos. Question I have is, besides cars of your own design, what are some of the most beautiful cars in history to you? Whoa, gosh. I said we have a lot of time, but we're not going to have that much time. I mean, design is a funny thing, you know, and when you're born, wherever you're born in history kind of reflects back on what your opinion is. So, you know, I'll be talking about cars that most of you probably never even heard about, simply because I grew up in an age when design was a little bit more flexible in car design, obviously, and we had less regulation. So the beautiful cars for me are the ones that have been kind of like sculpted by hand. I always speak about the human touch when it comes to design. And I love that feeling that cars back then were made to actually look like an artist made them. Not to say that a designer doesn't have that kind of talent, but designers nowadays are really locked into a lot of legislation and a lot of things that make them kind of have to stiffen up the designs a bit so you can comply with regulation. So the cars that I like are the ones that are probably illegal to design these days, and they're probably considered too dangerous, but they're more artistic than technical. So if we go back to I don't know, the 50s, they had incredible cars back then. For example, all the Jaguars, any Jaguar from the decade of the 50s is absolutely stunning for me. My favorite from then is the XJ13, which you probably wouldn't know if it's going forward or backwards, but it is one of the most beautiful cars that I think has ever been designed. It's a performance car. And then before that, there's a Talbot Lago that really, really gets my juices flowing when I look at it. Weak knees. What is your views? This is coming from Mr. Kumar. What is your views on doing masters in design after bachelor's in engineering? Hope I don't hurt too many people with a response to that. I don't believe in a master's in design, because if you're not good enough to get a job after doing your 4 years of design, you're probably going to be finding it difficult. I know it's difficult at the moment to get a job in the car design world, simply because in reality, car design companies don't need a lot of designers. They have a lot of projects, but I've always felt like the smaller the team, the more intense the energy in the design studio. So if you can keep that kind of energy in a design studio with a small team, the amount of work is neither here nor there, because you're going to be spending most of your days in the design studio, probably 18 hours, sometimes even oftentimes we work overnight. So meaning that design is a very difficult job in the design world, in the car design world, to get into. And once you've got your foot in the door, you can be very proud of yourself. So if you do a master's, that probably means that you haven't gotten picked up after those 4 years of university. And a master's is only going to allow you to study a bit longer and probably, obviously, perfect your portfolio a bit. But I would not recommend doing a master's if you don't have to do a master's. 1 second. Yeah. Right. Got it. Got that. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm picking up. I'm realizing that the important questions are ones that are a bit highlighted for me. So I want to get those out of the way so I make sure that I do that. And I'll make sure that Kane is checking through all the questions. So we're just going to pick them all up. But the ones I want to make sure I do answer are, for example, formerly Rodline, and he's asking the P1 and Mini, saying that they're his favorite designs, and he wasn't aware that I worked on both of them. And he's saying that it makes now sense why I like both so much. Thanks for bringing in such beauty to the world. You got to have a mother to make these beauties come into the world. So there's a big team always behind the projects. And but I guess if you're working with a team that is just as nuts and as excited about the project as you cannot get it wrong. You have to have a great engineering team behind you. And you yourself as a designer, although I don't look crazy on the screen, I am crazy in the way that I think. And I think that's probably what all designers have, sort of a second personality that doesn't match the pure personality that you're looking at on screen. We're not dangerous. We're just different thinkers in the sense that what we think of typically doesn't exist. And we have to create an object from scratch that only exists up here, typically only exists up here, and do it in such a way that a company is willing to spend, billions, millions, almost billions sometimes of dollars to invest in and to bring to life. So, we don't have that kind of money as designers, but the company does, and the success of the company oftentimes depends on the design of the vehicle. Design sells, as they say. And so they are willing to put that kind of money into producing your designs if they all feel that that's going to be a success. And you have to believe in your designs right from the moment you start working on it. There's always a period of refinement that the designer has to go through to bring that car to fruition. But you should never, as a designer, doubt that what your car is going to look like or become is going to be iconic in the end. So it's a tough job, but it's one of the kind of jobs that when you're doing it, you're so incredibly passionate and fulfilled when it does come to market. So again, thank you for liking the designs that I've been working on. Right. So I repeated the question. There's a very similar one there. RKDE, I'd really like to know R50, R53 items that you wanted to have in the design but never made it, like the early vents or A-vents, etc. There's really nothing on the Mini that I designed that didn't get in. That was one of the cars where BMW understood the importance of getting it right and design-wise. And so the team at BMW, the marketing team, the engineering team, were all under the direction from the head of BMW that kind of whatever I asked, I had to get. And that's a lot of freedom for a designer, but it also gives you that responsibility to stay within budget and understand that the car has to sell at the end of the day. So you don't want to ask for a mile and only get an inch. You have to get you have to understand at the beginning of the project, there is limitations to what you should be asking for. But again, if you don't ask for it, you don't get it. And if you don't stand your ground, there are people in the industry that will walk all over you. And a lot of times that's the finance department, the marketing department, engineering department. There's oftentimes this negative energy, not negative, but resistance energy or resistance to fulfilling your dream. Luckily enough, with the Mini, I didn't have that resistance from the beginning. I had it. I had what we call a red button that I could press in case the engineers weren't going to support me on an idea, and that red button went straight to the top of BMW. And I never pressed it in seriousness. I could threaten to press it, but I also didn't do that. But basically, the Mini turned out very, very much like I expected it or wanted it to. And I wouldn't say there's anything on the Mini either the R50, the R53 that isn't as I intended it to be from the design phase. So next question, keep the audience. Okay. I don't want to take your answers and questions and respond like with too much detail because it's going to limit the number of questions I can respond to. So I'll try to shorten slightly. Thanks, Kane. Kevin Daniels is asking, with global shift to SUVs, can a utility vehicle ever be as beautiful as a sedan or a coupe design? Thank you for the awesome content. The global shift to SUVs, can they ever be as beautiful as a sedan? I mean, that's relative. What is a beautiful or an ugly SUV? It's relative, like I said, because they're in a different segment. So if you're designing an SUV, again, it's just as important to meet the expectations of the customer in that segment. And it depends on the company's values, design values, because, you know, I think you'd be disappointed if the new Urus, the Lamborghini Urus, looked like a Toyota or even a Ferrari or anything like that. The design language of a company is so strong, or represents the company so strongly, that look should be expected when you see it throughout the range in any segment. So if you're designing a small segment vehicle for a brand, that design language doesn't have to be exactly like the luxury version of the segment or the SUV, but there has to be some kind of family feeling in the design that allows you to understand that vehicle and its brethren or cousins and brothers and sisters all come from the same mama and the same papa. So it's not that you have to make an SUV look beautiful as a sedan or as a coupe or whatever. It has to basically transmit the same design language. I think if you do that, it's a success. You've done the right job. Question from Daniel Lister. Hi, Frank. Thanks for all the beautiful cars and great videos. Which do you enjoy more, designing mass market iconic cars like the Mini, or rare limited run masterpieces like the P1? Darn. I enjoy them all. I think the challenge probably is to get the smaller ones done, or the less expensive ones, more on the bullseye, because those are the volume sellers that you have to make a success of, and they make a big difference to the success of the company. Because if you get the high volume cars that are selling at regular prices, if you get that wrong, that's an awfully massive impact on the company financially. So it's critical that those cars sell really well. Whereas when you get to the limited edition models, obviously they're selling at higher profits or higher numbers, and you want to get those just as well. And the technological development allows you to have probably a lot more fun designing them. But at the end of the day, the satisfaction comes from seeing the product on the road and bringing a lot of happiness to people. So although it's fun to design, say, these hypercars, at the end of the day, you don't really get to see them on the road. Sometimes it's so unusual that you design an incredibly desirable car and the customer doesn't even want to use it because he just wants to look at it and not put any mileage on the car. And that's a bit of a shame from a designer's perspective, because you've designed something that is at the top end of performance and aesthetic value and technology, but it's not being used. Whereas the ones that have been cheaper or more accessible to the general public, you get to see them every day. You get to look at them and really feel like your kid's out on the street, and, you know, where you at midnight, you should be home. You know, who's the owner of this car? Take it home and get it back in the garage. Anyways, Mate Petrani, do you think car companies are right in ditching clay modeling in favor of digital only? Yes. Bugatti started that recently, talking about how much more efficient that is and cheaper. Correct. On all accounts, Bugatti has started it recently, and they are saying that it's more efficient and it's cheaper. Hats off to them. I just would never buy one of those cars because it is completely in contrast to the way I think design should be approached. Obviously, we need to use computers in this day and age. We'd be foolish not to, but we don't want computers to take over the design process where they're actually doing, and believe it or not, it is It is a fact. Computers can design cars, but what they can't measure is the human factor, the human feeling of designing a product. And that is something that comes individually from the designer who's designing that vehicle. It's almost as if the design is that person designing it. It's his genetic connection and emotions in that design. A computer can be very sterile, very, very analytical, but it doesn't bring in the emotional side of the design. And I don't like that look. I understand the requirement for speed and for efficiency, but I would always emphasize, if I was running the design program, to leave the computers, the 3D modeling, all that to the very, very last minute, because I think the human touch in design is absolutely critical and invaluable. It's like the human brain cannot, be improved on by a machine. You can have it done faster, you can figure out things faster, or try options and things like that. But the actual stimulus and the actual inspiration, the emotional value of design does not come from a computer. So I'll be following Bugatti's progress closely, but I would never recommend using computers early on in a design program. The Kenji 412, do you ever feel like you're not done with a design? You have that urge to continue to design and fix the flaws you see. How do you tackle that? With a lot of frustration. You're absolutely right. A good designer never feels like he's really done the ultimate job. I think if we did feel like that, it's the time to hang up the pencil and go home, because designers are wired to always want to improve, not to change. There's a big difference. It's not that you're changing something just to try something else, but the ability to make something better is ingrained in every designer's circuitry, I guess you could call it. So you'll never be satisfied. You should never be satisfied as a designer with the end product, because they pay you for the ideas. That's what your talent, where your talent lies, and you want to be able to always improve on what your last accomplishment, your last piece of work is. And they have to rip the pencil typically out of our hands and make us feel bad. We go home, we have a bad day simply because we had to stop designing. So that's typically the way most successful designers that I know of operate. Never be satisfied. Never with your designs. Never fall in love with your designs. Be proud of them. They're the best you could have done to that moment in time, but you can always do them better than you have. So next question would be Gökhan Toros. What do you think about the design of newer Mini models? You've designed the first ones for BMW, and I wonder if you think they did a good job after your initial project. No. Next question. Talk about the new Bronco. I have talked. Hi, Dave Sandler. Talk about the new Bronco. I have recently made another critique on the new Ford Bronco. Just to give you a little bit of tidbit information, I do like the Ford Bronco, and it's going to be interesting because I know there is a lot of conflict in the way my opinion on retro design, whether we should call it retro design or anything like that. I stand by my guns that retro design is terrible. It should never be called retro design. All we're doing as designers is finding the right evolutionary process for a vehicle, whether it's last year's car or 30 years ago that car. One moment. JV, ahora que Alejandro Mesonero abandona SEAT para incorporarse a Renault, ¿no te gustaría dar tu identidad a una marca española si es que a SEAT le queda algo de español? Okay, sorry guys, that was a bit of Spanish there, but in the design world, it's the latest big news is that Alejandro Mesonero has left SEAT to go to Renault. So he's following Luca De Meo, who's the boss of SEAT. I worked with Luca in my Fiat days and Lancia days, and obviously under the umbrella of the Fiat brands. So quick story, Luca's moved over to take over Renault in that high position, and I think he's taking Alejandro, who was the head designer for SEAT, over to him. And would I like to join up to leave my imprint on a Spanish brand? No, I wouldn't like to do that either. I probably wouldn't even want really to go back into a corporate world where the marketing team and the finance team are telling me what to do. I've done that for 30 years. I've always felt like it's a bit of a struggle, but that it's an accepted compromise that you have to do and go through. You have to work obviously under compromises when you're a designer, and you have to have very thick skin. But to go to a brand like SEAT and take over a position like that, I don't think that would prove anything in my career. Now I've pretty much gone past the point of having to join a company where I would be brought in, I guess, to either change their design direction or improve it. I would rather work on my specialty. Me gustaría más trabajar por mi cuenta y hacer las cosas que a mí me apetecen en vez de ir a una compañía española o cualquier otra compañía para comunicar una lenguaje de diseño que lo cambia o que lo mejora. Entonces, estoy muy bien como estoy y no me apetece volver a trabajar con una compañía como la SEAT. Okay, sorry. Let's see. Next question. What would you say has been the biggest challenge in your automotive design career? And this is coming from Andres Bastidas. So Andres, the biggest challenge in my automotive design career, that's a good one. I haven't really thought about an answer. Biggest challenge. I know you guys probably think he's answered every question on here probably 10 times, but I have to think about what the biggest challenge. Biggest challenge in my design career is capitalizing on the moments when I've been able to know when to jump ship, if that makes any sense. We all resist change. It's a natural quality of a human being, is to sort of accept and just not want to risk anything in your career, your professional career. You feel like, well, okay, it's not the best, but I'm kind of happy, and I've got a responsibility to family and to myself to play it safe. But you're never really going to move up a ladder if you do that your whole life. I mean, you don't have to do it too much, but you have to do it when the opportunity is there. And I guess seeing opportunities to move my career along, I've taken advantage of that and sort of followed my gut feeling. Although I have to tell you, it's always been very, very fearful. I mean, you might think that going from BMW, mini BMW, BMW Group to Ferrari is a no-brainer, but believe me, every time you make a move, you understand if it's going up that your responsibilities are larger and greater, and you're going to be judged on your results. So again, I did that. I moved from Ford to BMW to Ferrari and Maserati to the Fiat Group to McLaren, and each one was a step up of where I was previously. And that's why I guess I find myself in my position now, but it's accepting the challenges to be able to realize there's a possible change that could make your design career challenging, more challenging. We always want challenges in design, but also to improve your life, to prove your satisfaction in your own career. When you get to that age where you think and you look back, you want to be happy that you took that chance and not worry that if I had taken that chance, would I be better off? So I've always I haven't looked to change, but I've seen the opportunities and the benefits of it. And I've taken that risk and that fear factor, swallowed them and gone on with it. And luckily enough, it's turned out very well for me. R. Vol, how does the design process of a race car differ from normal road car? How much is the design influenced by the engineers and their desire to create the most downforce? So designing a race car from a normal road car, the difference, and again, I'm not a race car designer, but when you're in the profession for a few decades, you learn what makes a car go fast and what doesn't work and what works. So from a lot of my experience, I can tell you that designing a race car is very different from designing a road car. A road car has to sell. A race car doesn't really have to sell. So immediately on the design side, a race car doesn't have to project an emotional value in the sense of I want that car, I desire that car, I don't need it, but I want it. A race car is almost a tool. It's kind of like a military fighter plane. Who cares what it looks like? It just has to perform. And typically these race cars, these military aircraft, Generation 5 fighter planes, they all look desirable. And the reason they all look desirable is because they work so well. When you design something that works so well, I've said it many times, it tends to look good. You have to make an effort to make something that performs well. You have to make a real effort to make it look ugly or unattractive. And therein lies the the touch of the designer, I guess you could say. But race car design, road car design, two completely different fields. But you have to inject a lot of the race car technology into the road car just to advance road car design. We learn a lot from race car design, and it's all beneficial to road car design. So if you're designing a car, you have a few different objectives. And obviously in the hypercar segment, supercar segment, you're wanting to get as much performance out of the vehicle as possible, but also aerodynamics and things like that reflect themselves back into the lower, they trickle down into the lower segments of automobiles. So a correlation, but most of the road car designs can only at the high end reflect very closely what race car design is all about. Next question. Let's see. What do you think about the McLaren? What do you think about the McLaren Senna design? I think my last question just answered that one. You got to try hard to make a very high performing vehicle not look nice. So I wouldn't try so hard. Santorini, I've been there. Thank you very much. Blue Donkey Man. Comment, you make every woman look better. Women in Fiat 500s just look better when they drive. That's true. Very true. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a bit like putting makeup on. It tends to make you look better, but it's always better when the natural look without any makeup is good to begin with. Next question from Jacob. Jacob Krish. Hi, Frank. Do you think there are some distinctive differences in car design between European, USA, and Japanese cars? Yeah. If so, what do you think they are? Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, that's the cultural differences we often see in fashion, we see in architecture, and obviously in all kinds of furniture design. So, which I think is a good thing. It would be a boring world where all the cars kind of look like the same. And I think it would be a huge error for a company to try to design a world car, one that pleases everybody all the time. I don't think even that's possible. And if you tried to do that, it'd probably look like a brick, and that doesn't really please anybody. So what are the distinctive differences in car design? Well, in Japan, it's typical that they like very much the sci-fi look in their culture. They have a very advanced way of looking at things. It's a lot of electronics, and that impact shows itself in the design of the vehicles in the sense that there's more of a science fiction look to a lot of the interiors, for example, and the way the cars operate. So there's that look for Japan, very advanced. If you go to Japan, you'll see that immediately in just about every aspect of their current modern designs. In the US, it's about size, convenience, comfort, weight seems to be less critical, and that kind of shows in the vehicles that they're made for sort of straight on driving. Of course, you get the very sporty cars, the sports car segment in the US, but that's few and far between. The general design language of a US car is all about comfort and size. Basically, you don't want to feel like you're in a small car in a US city, because it just is a little bit fearful when you see the size of the typical vehicles they have. And not to put down their taste for sports cars or their development in sports cars, but it's a bit of a minority in the overall design language of the US. In Europe, it's about refinement. In Europe itself, you get a lot of different looks. You get the Italian sensuality look, the beautiful, the emphasis on beauty and culture. In France, you get kind of the quirky look. Germany, you get the very serious looking cars. And in England, typically you get a very restrained look to the design, car designs. So Desmais, do you think car design between makes was more? Ooh, that's difficult. Do you think car design between makes was more distinguishable in the past than it is now? 90s, 2000s design versus now, and if so, do you know why? Yeah, design back in the 90s, even earlier, things hadn't been tried as much as they have been tried now. So there was, it's kind of like movies, the great movies are actually the older movies where the topics, the themes of the movies hadn't been ever explored, and they had a lot of variety. Now, just about every movie theme is you can relate it to something back in the past, and so there's a little bit less variety in the themes of the movies coming out now. So very very similarly in that kind of thing about design in the past and car design. You get the very different looking cars in the past, and now everybody's looking towards efficiency, obviously, safety, aerodynamics, things like that, and that's starting to commonize the design. And the fear I have is that everybody's going to start trying too hard again now to distinguish their cars, and ugly will become the new beautiful, if that makes sense to you guys. If trying too hard is not the way to design something. There has to be an element of simplicity and elegance and proportions, obviously, to everything that we're doing now. So Andrew is asking, Andrew Storm, can I buy one of your paper drawings? Sure. Andrew, there's going to be, I hope, at the bottom of the screen at some point, and also in the comment section, perhaps at the top, the drawings that I've done over these episodes are all going to be auctioned off to something that's very, very close to my heart. I have a very dear friend and his 2 children that are part of this organization, which is about Duchenne's, which is a muscular dystrophy charity that is supporting the development and technology to help solve the problem. It's a typical, it's something that we're trying to do to advance the research on this terrible disease. And it basically, I don't want to get into too much detail, but it's really in support of helping them continue their fight against something that's just very sad. And the only way we can get on top of it is basically to continue the research, the hard research that they've been doing. So the sketches will be auctioned off, and we've got 2 weeks of a window from starting, I think, on the 1st of August that allow people to bid on the drawings. And if you guys have seen the drawings, here's where I can put in a little bit of input. When you see the drawings that I'm doing during the videos, a lot of you guys are saying, yeah, I can draw better than that. Well, you have to imagine, I haven't, for example, on the X5, that was 1994, and I've never designed an SUV since then. And again, I don't want to make an excuse, but the first SUV I drew after 1994 was the one I did on the channel. So I had to recall from memory what I was drawing, and it's very easy to get rusty in the drawing profession. It's like going to the gym for years, and then you stop for 2 months and you lose a lot of gain. So you have to brush up your skills very quickly. So I wanted all the drawings on those episodes to be spontaneous and from the heart very quickly. And if you ask any designer, typically we use underlays. I didn't use any underlays of previous drawings. I just went right there on the spot, pressured under the spot to do it in 5 minutes. So the bonus that you're all going to see that's available is that I've taken those sketches that you see on the site, and I've actually improved or refined them such that you're going to get something that's really, really nice, as well as the original that you look at and you see that that was exactly the one that was shown. But I've been able to spend a little bit more time since then on making the sketches really nice. So you should like that. Again, Throttle Girl Now. Hi, Frank. What do you think about companies rebuilding their old cars, like Eagle rebuilding the lightweight GT and other E-Type Jaguars, and Aston Martin rebuilding the Aston Martin DB4 GT? Okay, so here, now we can start to talk a little bit about retro. And in a good way. Retro, in this sense, is good because there are so many stunning cars in the history that I really feel bad that they aren't, say, legal to the safety measures we have today. So if we can take those cars and bring them back to our roads in such a way that they're still faithful, very faithful, and very identifiable as the original. Of course, the Eagle's E-Type is a better version than the original E-Type, but it's not something that you would say is like a future version of it. It's recalling the past in a very dear way and respecting that original vehicle. So the ability to take that language, keep it, and just make that car perform better is very, very positive. So I would say keep it. That should always be something that is available to us who really love these cars that were designed in an era when they were artists / designers doing them, and it would be a pity if those cars weren't kept with us forever in terms of being available to us. Good. Next question. Hello, Maestro. I'm planning to study design at the Politecnico di Torino. I've always been a fan of you since little. Sorry, question's gone. Sorry, jumped. So I didn't. Here we go. Hello, Maestro. I'm planning to study design at the Politecnico di Torino. I've always been a fan of you since little. Nice, thanks. My dream is to design cars and other transports. What would you recommend to me? Well, you don't need a lot if you want to be a car designer. We're all the same. We all start drawing cars pretty much around the age of 10. Some guys started a bit earlier. I don't know why, but you might be fascinated when you're very young and start to draw. But I didn't really think about drawing cars. I just imagined and dreamed about cars. But drawing cars came to me at around 9 or 10 years old. So what I would recommend you to do is to basically pick up a pen, pencil, or whatever, and start drawing and lose the pencil as quickly as possible. People comment oftentimes about the big pen that I use. I've just always drawn with a pen because I realize that in design, if you don't leave the lines down that you've previously drawn, if you start to feel like you have to erase the lines, then you're not really progressing. You're going back. It's like 2 steps, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And the lines that I've previously drawn are showing me steps along the way to get to the final design. So it's kind of like, I don't emphasize the lines, make them darker until I'm absolutely sure where I'm going with a perspective or with a design. Then I'll go in and make those lines darker. But the light lines on the paper that you think are mistakes are not mistakes. They're just leading you on the path to your final design. So get rid of the pencil as quickly as you can, or stop erasing, and draw with that subtlety at the beginning where you're thinking on the paper. And all you need is like I use. I mean, people were saying what I use. It's not $1,000 pen. It's just a simple Bic pen. And I like the Bic pens because of the line quality. And you might not know what I mean when I say line quality, but there's a sensitivity that you'll develop as you learn to draw that allows you to put the very faintest of lines on the paper, and also very thick, very strong, very dark lines on the paper. And as you learn to design and your abilities get better, you'll know which lines to make darker and which lines to make lighter. And there's a real easy way to translate that pen sketch to something that looks pretty cool. I mean, all the great designers, all the great artists of the past, they all have that underlying ability or talent to be able to draw freehand. And that's not using any guides, any ellipse guides, any French curves, any ellipses, ellipse guides. You have to learn to draw. To design great products, you have to be able to draw them by hand. Never expect the computer to help you out. And the computer is only a crutch or a last-minute aid. So whether you should learn Photoshop or not, absolutely, but don't rely on that to make your designs great. Malapusto. Hey, Frank, I was moved to tears by your documentary. I was too. Thank you. Some truly inspirational stuff. Greetings from Israel. Thank you very much. Yeah, I have to blame the Helena Cohen for doing that. The parts which were a little bit touching, like you mentioned here, were done under the understanding that they weren't being recorded, and I would only tell her that as like something that she should know. But I didn't know the camera was on me, so that's why it came across very, very emotionally, I think, some of those aspects. But it's good that it did come out. Thank you. We're emotional people. Most designers have a side of them that is a little bit sensitive. So we're going now to VW Siphone. What is your idea of the W124 Mercedes? And one more car, how about the VW Phaeton? Thank you also if you have any option on the new Kia look as a whole. Well, Kia, let's go backwards on that one. The Kia is doing very well, kind of like with Genesis and that. They're doing very well. They're very brave, and they're very aware of the quirkiness, I guess you could say, of previous designs and the danger of that. And I think they're finding a point now where their quirkiness of the design, or their very singular design language, is not very well accepted by the majority of people. So I think they're on a path now where they've really, really been able to refine that. They've brought in some design management from Europe that has been able to refine that look for them. And again, I'm not saying that they should they should quell or stop their design language for these vehicles. But they have to learn about refinement, I think, and that's what's being done now. Kia is doing a great job on the refinement side of those vehicles. So, top marks for them for doing that. With the Phaeton is a good one. I find that car a little bit difficult to understand in the sense that they've done an absolute incredible job, but it's kind of like Timex designing a watch to compete with a Rolex, if that means, or a Swatch watch that has to compete with a Rolex, and Swatch doing a great piece of work on it, turning that car into that kind of quality. They're not dumb. They know that the Phaeton has to compete with a disadvantage. Having the VW logo on it in that segment is, you're not really even making a statement. Or people buy Teslas for certain reasons, or cars like Skoda for certain reasons, and saying, I'm not worried about the image I'm projecting. Skoda is not an expensive vehicle relatively, but it's just showing the world that I'm more interested in great engineering and great technology, and the badge doesn't really. I don't worry about what image I'm projecting in that sense. With VW, it's very dangerous to compete at that level. I think, my personal opinion, of course, but very difficult to compete at a level where you have such high class, long, companies that have been around for a long time in that segment, where they develop their own customer loyalty. So I love the product. I love the Phaeton. I think one of the very first ones that they came out, I was so impressed with the hinges on the rear deck, on the rear boot lid. It was just somebody's masterpiece that designed those hinges. If you're going to get a chance, check it out. But thank you very much. VW. First car I fell in love with was the 97 VW Jetta VR6. Yeah, I'm wondering if you're in the U.S., because the Jetta, obviously very popular in the U.S. It's the reason why the Golf never was a big success in the U.S., because when the Jetta went over there, it was the Golf pretty much with a rear boot on it, or rear tail on it, volume trunk. And the U.S. public have never really bought into any car that doesn't have that rear end to it. It's kind of scary, I think, from their point of view, that if they get hit from behind, that a car without a trunk or a boot on the back of it is going to be very, very difficult to survive when you have that kind of, Freightliner coming up behind you. So, yeah, Jettas are great cars. I like them. I like them, again, for their simplicity and their cleanness of design. But I prefer the Golf. If I look at a Jetta, I think the Golf is a little bit more sportier, I guess. It's kind of like, do you like the Golf or the Scirocco? And I kind of like the Scirocco. It's a bit compromised design-wise in its height and things like that, but it's a bit sportier. So, I mean, Jettas are fine, great cars, and I would imagine that's a question from the U.S. Silver hinge on the trunk was amazing. Yes, it was. I believe it. It was more than silver. If you actually look at the technology of that car, you'll see that the technology was pretty superior to any other boot hinge or trunk hinge on the market. Far surpassed Rolls-Royce, Bentley, or any of those cars. That's why I'm mentioning it. If anybody's curious as to why I'm gushing about the VW Phaeton boot hinge, just check it out. It's impressive. It's a work of art. I really do feel that the person who designed it probably thought, I'm not going to be around much longer. I better do something that makes my legacy. And that certainly is something to be proud of. Again, where does the form over function matter? And what makes a good car a good engendered car versus a pretty car? What? Where does form over? It matters everywhere. When it comes down to overwhelmed by its own design. No. I mean, first of all, like what I said before, design sells. So the car has to have a design that I think strongly feel that you should never have to spend more than 5 minutes getting used to a design on the car. And that's not to say that it has to be boring and that it's predictable and all that. But rarely will you ever buy a product or feel good with a product that you haven't immediately this this love at first sight that I rant on about. Love at first sight in design is highly, highly sellable and critical, I think, in a design phase. We just don't like designs. We don't warm up to designs that take us a while to warm up to, and they can be interesting design. There are a lot of cars out there that you do warm up to, and they're a bit of a shocker at the first. But the most successful designs are the ones that we sit back and we see it for the first time, and the hair stands up on our skin, on our arms, in a good way. Like, oh my gosh, that is so desirable, emotional, and so we have to go for cars like that, I think, as a design objective. Will Bennett. I've been thinking about this a lot. What makes beauty in a car? Well, that's hard to answer, but for me, I just typically use one approach that typically seems to get good feedback, and that's excellent proportions. So if you've ever seen any product that is badly proportioned, it's a little bit off-putting. And we have, believe it or not, in our genetic makeup, a fixed set of design values that make most things in life appealing or not appealing. And if you look at ourselves, for example, us as humans, we have basic proportions that are appealing, and you wouldn't imagine a human in the kind of proportions that start to look odd as being appealing. They might be interesting, but they're not appealing. So I think beauty lies in the fact that you have to communicate design values, design proportions that we feel. And of course, taste is different. Taste is subjective. I like talking about taste because it's very hard in the design world to tell somebody that something is good design or bad design when they're saying, I don't like it. And you can't say, well, you better like it because it's good design. But the fact is, it's all about proportions. Bad design has bad proportions. Good design has good proportions. And there's an infinite variety of things with good proportions that can give you that, well, I prefer this one over that one. But the basic element is good proportions. And that's what our internal makeup sort of, when it's wrong, when you're not wired like that, then you'll start liking things that aren't very appealing to the majority of the public. So emphatically, good proportions are what drive good design. Arval, what do you think about grills on EVs? That doesn't go together. Grills and EVs, that's like an oxymoron. Is it something acceptable or just a lazy workaround? It's a lazy workaround. Why do you need to put a grill on something that doesn't need it? It's kind of like putting a face mask. Maybe they're doing it. I don't know. I mean, I know that you have to be careful when you're designing a car that you give it a front end graphic. And typically we consider the headlights to be the eyes of the vehicle and the grille to kind of be the mouth of the vehicle. And both of those elements on a human face are very unique, or the nose. So you have these features that we expect to be on the human face. The moment you take the nose away, it loses a bit of character. And so they're trying perhaps to find the lazy way around by just keeping the grille on the vehicle itself. I don't like doing that. I think it's, like I said, it's the lazy way around. There has to be a way to design the EV vehicle without a grille that doesn't need to be there. I'm very against designing things on vehicles that are just there for a graphic approach and not for an authentic reason or purposeful reason. It's too much makeup for me in that sense. So you can design beautiful front ends without the need to put a grille on. You can find distinctive ways to give the car a unique character, an identifiable character, without the need to go to the extreme of putting something on that isn't needed. Like the Honda E. Yeah, there are ways to do it. So I think the cop out is doing a grille on a vehicle that doesn't need it. So it's kind of like going the opposite way doesn't make any sense either. If you said you had an electric vehicle that doesn't have a need for a grille, then why would you can't physically or realistically put a no grille on a car that needs one, So it's an oxymoron. Hi, Frank. Which car brand, in your opinion, is doing the best in terms of design at the moment? I like the companies that are taking risks and pushing the buttons in terms of design. So it would have to be a company that is doing that. I like experimentation. I like pushing the limits and pushing them without going out of control. So bit of sense of constraint when you're doing these designs. But I would have to say a company either like, this might surprise most of you, but I really like what Renault and Citroën are doing, because they, I mean, you can see it in their concept car designs. They push the envelope. I mean, have you ever seen a Citroën like the DS? I think it is the latest concept car they're doing, which is totally off whack in the sense of balance of asymmetry or symmetricness. It's kind of two cars glued in the middle, kind of thing. And I think that's pushing, the ideas forward. Why does a car have to look the same on one side as it does on the other? I remember one of the funniest things I ever heard was when most of you might know him by name, Giorgetto Giugiaro, the design master of automotive design, the designer of the 20th century. When I was with him, he once at a motor show, we were walking around the car, or walked up to a car to look at it. And he looked at we were on the right side of the car. He looked at it and he says, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that." We walked over to this other side of the car. And he said, "And they even did it on this side too." So it was funny. I couldn't stop laughing, but it made me think, yeah, why? You don't actually see a car on both sides at the same time. So there are, reasons to believe that you could design something very interesting by asymmetric design principles. Farid Solis, what are the subtle design cues and language that can make a car look great or bad? You previously mentioned fake vents, for example, being terrible. Yeah, fake vents are the obvious ones. The other things I don't like are, for example, exhaust pipes that are actually fake. If you look at a lot of cars, you'll see these amazing looking exhaust pipes coming out the back. And typically, if you understand exhaust pipes, they grow considerably when they get warm or hot, and they'll change their position within the back of a car. So typically these beautiful exhaust pipes that you see on the back of a car aren't really the exhaust pipes. The exhaust pipe is inside of that finisher that looks so fantastic. So not that I don't like that aesthetically, but I find it that, it's a bit of a cop-out to design an exhaust pipe that looks extremely aggressive, extremely exciting to look at, but in reality, it's not really the exhaust pipe. And again, if you look at certain high-performance vehicles, you'll often see that. I think you have to design honesty into a car. B&M LKN, what do you think about the Koenigsegg design? That's OE or O with an umlaut. What do I think about it? Very good, in the sense that I guess it might depend on which car we're talking about. In general, the Koenigsegg's designs are very unique. I kind of feel, whenever I've sat inside of a Koenigsegg, like I'm looking from the inside of a mailbox outwards. It's got this very, almost slot-like view from inside the car. So from an ergonomic point of view, it's a little bit compromised from the inside of the car, but who cares? You're sitting inside of a spaceship, and that's exciting enough. The outside of the car, I think for the technology that they're bringing to the game, they could be a little bit more futuristic with the design. And you're probably thinking, well, what's he talking about? The car has doors that open up in the most extreme way. If you don't know what a Koenigsegg door looks like when it's open, it's kind of fun to watch. But again, it's that might be the only element on the Koenigsegg that I find sort of pushing new ways of designing cars. I like them because they're simple. I'm not trying to, not make a commitment here on what I feel about Koenigsegg. I do think they're unique and very, very interesting to look at. Great cars, very, very good cars. I mean, excellent cars. Very exciting to be inside and to be out of. And the one that probably excites me the most right now is their Gemera, which is a 4-seater GT vehicle. 3-cylinder engine. If you check it out, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's got a few more than a few electric motors that help it to get up to very high speed. So it's a very interesting take on a 4-seater and you would never think it's a four-seater. It looks to be very comfortable in the back, but you would absolutely swear it's a sports car with two seats. Ikenna A, what are your opinions on the future of mobility? Wow, you've worked on a VTOL project, but are there other modes of transport you see becoming ubiquitous in the future? Good question, Ikenna. My opinions on the future of mobility is that we have got to get cracking the whip, because in this day and age, I hate it when it takes me, or now that I'm working from home or from my own studio, it doesn't mean I have to travel too much, but I hated those days when it took forever for me to get from one place to another on a daily basis. And you waste so much time in traffic, and you get frustrated. You get to work, and your creativity has been reduced by just the mental energy of getting to work. And on the way home, you run into that same kind of heavy, dense traffic, and kind of makes you just want to eat and go to bed. So I think that we're looking at ways in the future that really facilitate in a much better way getting A to B, not only quicker, but safer. Safety is an incredibly important aspect of design, especially vehicle design. And I think we have to be able to find better ways that are not just better in terms of getting there, but faster and safer, obviously. And so, yeah, the VTOL thing that you're mentioning, if you don't know, that's electrical vertical takeoff and landing, guys. These are these new flying taxis that are going to be in the skies above us, albeit not as many as we all think. It's not going to be a science fiction film where you see all these planes crisscrossing the skies. They'll be controlled and certified and everything. So they'll just be running. You won't be individually owning one of this. But I do see eVTOL aircraft as coming very soon in our lifetime, quite soon. I think everybody on here will be witnessing this in the next few years. But it will be ultra safe. It has to be ultra safe. They'll be flying low altitude over cities, landing in cities, on tops of buildings, and in general parking areas and places where you don't need a lot of room. But it is coming, and it's exciting. So that in itself, I think, is going to be the big step that we witnessed when we had horses to cars. And believe it or not, it took a lot of people a lot of time to accept cars. It was a bit dangerous and nerve-wracking to get into a vehicle that traveled so quickly from one place to another. But that's what's going to happen with the eVTOL market, is we're going to be cutting distances or living distances away from our work, the travel time quite a bit, so that it makes more sense to travel in one of these to where, when you want to get somewhere quickly and not expensive. The whole thing about this is making it available to everybody to be able to use, and not just an exclusive few. So expect to see eVTOL aircraft this decade, and very commonly used. Clown World, do you think the 2018 Buick Enclave is similar to a newer Bentley in terms of sidelines and creases? Yeah, I do. That's not going to be the first case that we see something, Lincoln, Buick, or one of those companies look like they've actually got inspired by Bentley. Of course, it's not a good thing for a designer to be accused of using another car's design language or getting too closely inspired by a competitor's look. I think that would be a reason to fail the car from a critique point of view, because it looks too similar. As designers, we're under the responsibility of developing our own design languages, not ripping off other languages. But it's very hard, believe me, it's very hard to create a unique look to a vehicle these days, because it is oftentimes that you can see vehicles looking like other vehicles from other brands, and that's not a good thing. It's misfortunate or unfortunate in the sense that it doesn't look like you have, used your creative muscle or creativity in a way that allows you to develop your own design language. So if there is a little bit of similarity, which I understand what you're saying there, it's not a good thing. I think we have to strive for our own identity and be our own self. And in the car world, it's extremely important to do that. And obviously, some brands try to replicate the looks of other brands just to boost up the impression level of the vehicle. But again, that's a cop out a little bit sometimes. But you try not to do that as a designer. Dos Zeta or Dos Z. Hi, Frank. What do you think of the universe that surrounds us? Okay. I mean, from a designer artist perspective, does the surrounding and thinking of it make you think of the creator of it? 100%. I wouldn't say I'm like one of the most strictly religious people, but I do believe in our creator, and upstairs somebody is really, really making sure that we do the very best we can in our lives, or trying to have us understand the benefit of doing the very best in our lives to deliver good to society. So yes, I see where you're coming from, and I do believe very much in God, and He gives us all talents that I think, if we're lucky in our life, we are able to realize what those talents are, develop those talents, and use them for the benefits of others. It's all about giving. It's never about taking. We don't look for getting anything back, but typically when you do give, you get 10 times more back in satisfaction. So just be good, everybody out there. You'll have a great life if you can just be, at the end of it, thankful that you've been a good person. So yes, I strongly believe in that. I'm very thankful for having discovered a talent for what I do, and being able to actually deliver on it. So thank you very much for that question. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Doseta. Are you interested in designing self-driving vehicles? Whoa. I am, but I'll tell you the truth. And the difficulty with self-driving vehicles is that you have to leave the responsibility, the moral decisions to a vehicle. And I sincerely do not believe that level 5, which is what you're speaking about, level 5 is when the vehicle completely takes over the driving. You can go to sleep and wake up and you'll be there. If you start to think about it very deeply, you'll see that it is, I wouldn't say a ridiculous proposition, but it is something that I see almost an impossibility from my viewpoint, which might be limited still because I don't live in in the year 2500. Maybe they will have found solutions for that. But at the same time, I think self-driving vehicles will only happen, or obviously they're happening. We have subway systems, trains, things like that. But in the sky, it will happen much sooner than on the road. You want to take out any of the driver error possibilities, and that will happen first in the air, then on the ground. So I think I don't believe in level 5 in my lifetime, put it that way. I might be controversial, but I don't believe in it. Unless all vehicles on the road are operating at level 5, then it will potentially happen. But you can't have level 3 mixing with level 5. It's going to create accidents. Next question is from Mr. Kekes Hirovje. What do you think about the, oh gosh, I knew this was going to come. What do you think about the Cybertruck design? No. That is such a discussion point. I think we're going to have to make a video on that one and get into it, because I think it's going to be one of the most interesting videos currently about car design, because it tears everybody one way or the other. You can't be in the middle of the road on the Tesla, on the Cybertruck, because I'll make the video and I'll give you absolutely a professional, or my professional viewpoint on it. And all I can tell you, it's not going to be good. Expect fireworks. Robert Stacy, the R53 Mini is the perfect mix of paying homage and mixing in modern design. Any styling cues that were nixed by finance and engineering? Not on the Mini. I've been on a few other projects where it has been painful to see that. But on the Mini, I was given the guarantee that if they were not, and this is probably the first time I'm saying this, really, I honestly can tell you this. I was given the power, I guess you could say, from Dr. Wolfgang Reitzler, who was my boss, or the head of research and engineering at the time when I was sent from Munich to England I started in a different studio, but ended up at the Final Rover Group Design Studios, which is in Gaydon, England, in Warwickshire, in the middle of England. And that's where the Rover Design Studios at the time were at. And now it's Jaguar Land Rover, Aston Martin, and those guys. But when I went over in 1996, in November, I had the backing of BMW's board and also from Dr. Wolfgang Reitzler to just make sure that the design that I did was carried out exactly to my wishes into production. And of course, there's production and feasibility problems along the way, because if you look at the Mini, and I said it's not retro, there were so many impossible things to actually develop at that time to make the Mini as I had designed it. And again, that's another show, but there were a lot of elements that weren't able to be done. And there was a lot of thinking and engineering that had to go in. There was a BMW HIT team sent in, and the combination of the Rover Group engineering and the BMW engineering came up with new ways of building a car, to wrap glass as tightly as we did, to create and bend metal the size of the huge front hood of the Mini. I don't want to get into too many of the actual features, but the Mini was basically a free-for-all for me in terms of being able to deliver on the clay model design that I'd done as the winner, I guess you could say, for the new Mini of the 21st century. So getting back to Robert, the R53 is the mix. I just answered that, sorry. What do you think is the most timeless design car, not just in look, but in tech? Timeless car, not just in look. Do you think the computer age helped cars or made them boring? Well, we're not. First of all, the most timeless car has just not been developed yet. I think you never know what a timeless car is until time has gone by, and most of those cars don't exist anymore. So, I mean, you can look at designs that have revolutionized car design in general and made them iconic, but at some point, even the iconic cars get replaced, and if they get replaced, it's because somebody is thinking they can do a better job. And I guess calling a car timeless is a bit of a hit and miss, or let's cross our fingers and hope it stays in production for more than 5 years in the way it is. Now, the Mini, to take a specific example on the Mini, I don't want to bring that up just because I worked on it, but the Mini lasted for 40 years, from 1959 to 1999, and that is what we would call a timeless design. But whether or not somebody now would buy an original Mini and still call it timeless, I doubt it, because the world moves on. So there isn't really, in industrial design, I don't think anything is timeless. You can look at art and call the Mona Lisa timeless, or David or whatever. They could be timeless designs because they will just not age. They're created by masters who know their art very well, and only a different variation can be done, but nothing can replace that original piece of art. In design, to call something timeless is difficult. You can call it iconic, but timeless means it just doesn't get old. Technology moves too fast and too often in a positive way to be able to call something timeless. So there isn't anything I would put on as timeless design, although I'd love to call some cars timeless, like the original Mini, or some of the, the Defender just got replaced from Land Rover. That was doing very well, but it had packaging issues and things that just don't make it appealing in this day and age, although they are, functional products, but they lived out their usage. So, okay, next question, John. John Gallup, what effects will COVID have on the market for new automotive designers in the next 12 months? Well, I will be graduating next April. Okay. Don't know what you're graduating from, if it's from high school or university or where, but at the same time, I'm as much as you and everybody else concerned about COVID and how we as designers cover that responsibility to think about it and to bring solutions to the market. And obviously, it will be a very big thing now. I mean, it's just happened. Relatively, it's a blink that COVID started in our last few months. But it has had such a heavy impact, and we can't be sure, that we're going to be over it anytime soon. Who knows if a vaccine for it is going to have side effects in 6 months after we take the vaccine, or in 5 years down the line. So it's a moving target. So COVID, treating COVID, I think the things we can bring to the market in terms of treating that are basically privacy in the vehicle that you're traveling, having some kind of privacy screen or something that, it's hard to, like I said, it's a moving target. You don't see it, So how do you protect yourself inside of a closed vehicle in such a way that people you don't know or that are potential carriers of it don't affect you with that problem? So the last thing you want to do is capsulize yourself, put yourself into an enclosed capsule, because that is, I mean, antisocial. And some people are saying, I will never do that. But at the same time, we have a responsibility as designers to come up with some kind of solutions that do have some kind of a positive effect. So I would imagine we're going to start looking into materials that are anti-back, in the sense that silver is one of the better applications of anti. I'm not sure if it's viral or what, but it does have antibacterial properties, and things can only live very short times on certain surfaces. And in cars and public transport vehicles, there are surfaces that are being touched all the time. So we have to be able to think in terms of revolutionizing the industry in terms of materials that we use within the vehicle. And even when we're not in the vehicle, there are opportunities. I know about military investigations and research going on now to develop products that when you're outside the vehicle, something happens within the vehicle to eliminate any potential infecting substances or organisms or whatever. So you can heat the vehicle up in such a way that it becomes so hot in the time you're out of it that it kills off any viruses, any things that could harm you. So a lot of investigation, a lot of mind power, believe me, is going into it on the sidelines. And we as designers, I think the important thing is cross industry collaboration, so that people who are investigating it come together and share their knowledge with us as designers, such that we can all benefit in the end by being able to be confident and fearless, almost in a way, on public transport systems, and in being sure that the vehicles that we travel in personally are kept in a highly sanitized manner, much more over than whatever emphasis we put on it up to now. Saud Ansari, hello. Hi, Mr. Frank. Hi. I'm an engineer. I've designed 2 ATVs, all-terrain vehicles, for our motorsport team, and I don't have any formal training in transportation design. But I make good sketches and concepts. Do you recommend going for design school? Okay, so that depends. In this day and age, I think what's interesting, even with COVID, we can understand that education at a design university is becoming difficult, because it's not like the old days where we had classes and instructors coming in. If you want, there are some very good design classes online. Shout out to Sketch Monkey. He's very good. I like his work. They offer classes online where you can learn the basics, not only the basics of design, but you can also learn the way to create beauty in industrial objects. So Sketch Monkey is one. I'm just saying his name because I don't know him personally. I just respect his work very much. He's got a very creative and very well developed mind on design taste in general, I would say. So that's my personal opinion. But again, I would not go to design school. Design school is easy to talk about, but it's very it's not only expensive, it's a different lifestyle than what most people expect. Design school, many of you here probably are budding designers. If you're going to go to design university, don't waste your time going to the design university unless you're fanatically obsessed with design in such a way that you are probably OCD in many respects. Because I'm not saying that to make fun of the profession, but to get to the top and to be able to produce designs, you have to be obsessed with your profession. It can't be even a profession. It can be probably the only thing you can do in life good. And you have to dedicate 24/7. You don't stop when you go to sleep. You dream about it, you wake up. And I know I sound exaggerated, but that's just the way I've seen the good guys work. They're very dedicated, and to spend 4 years of your life in that kind of mental and physical prison to get out and maybe not get a job as a car designer is very, very scary. But there are guys who go through it. It's very much like training for a special elite armed forces division. And if you get accepted, you're extremely satisfied. But I won't tell you what that is. That was Superman. I will tell you. Any rate, I would not recommend to go into a design school the way I see things that are at the moment, unless you're willing to commit yourself if there's a number above 100%, then that's the number you have to commit to going to the university. It's a change of lifestyle. Social life is non-existent for 4 years, and you have to be determined to be the best in the class, not just one of the best, but the best. And if you come out and you do get a job, you're ready for the ride of your life, because design really is probably one of the best dream professions I think that anybody could have. It is extremely rewarding. But to design a race car vehicle, I think you would learn more online, or actually trying to communicate your ideas through to a professional who's already in that industry. If you made contact with Adrian Newey or Gordon Murray, and you can ask people to help put you in contact with them, and you have some ideas, they can help you on the race car approach, design side, in design and engineering. From an aesthetic point of view, I wouldn't worry too much about the aesthetics, like I said, of the race car vehicle, because as long as it works great, it's typically going to look great. Just don't try to make it look ugly. Jeffrey Mullins, would you consider yourself a car person as much as a design person? Okay, here, I'm going to say it. I don't care about the car so much after I've designed it. It might sound like, is this the right guy? I get my biggest kick out of designing the vehicle and turning out something that is absolutely mind-blowing design-wise. Getting in the car and driving it is for sure a satisfaction, but it's not where I get my kick. My kick is actually in producing something from a vision and into reality, and standing back and admiring the aesthetic values of the vehicle, and that the performance of the vehicle matches the aesthetic values of the vehicle. So I'm a car guy. I love racing. I love all that kind of stuff, but I could almost be just as happy sitting in the seat next to somebody who knows how to handle the vehicle better than I do. I can ride bikes pretty well. I can drive, up to a certain level and enjoy it, but I'm more of an aesthetic valuing person than actually getting in and driving the products that I design. So let me get to that one, VW. Frank, is there a time when a failure or a mistake ended up turning into a blessing in disguise or a revelation of some kind? Yeah, but here's the thing, Jason. I don't believe in failure. I don't believe in mistakes, or calling them failures or mistakes. And you might read this a lot because it's an absolute truth. We all make mistakes. We all make failures, but they're not mistakes and failures per se. They're just stepping stones to the final objective, the final goal. If you don't make a failure or a mistake along the way, you're not really doing something successful. You have to try things, and you have to fail, and you have to make mistakes, and they hurt. They don't feel good. They feel like they're obstacles, but that's the only way to get better. Nobody's good at anything until they practice at it. They'll say that if you spend 10,000 hours doing something, you'll get to a pretty high level, and that's absolutely the truth. So you could feel like you're not a designer and you're not going to be ever a designer, but if you do it enough and you practice it enough and you learn from good people, apply good principles, and you're dedicated, anybody can do that. So you can't say I'm not genetically gifted. I don't have the talent to draw. That's just because you're lazy enough to not put the effort in that other designers have put in. So again, there is no failure or mistake in turning something into a success. I've never looked at whatever I've turned out in design to have had mistakes in the beginning. There are challenges and there are obstacles, but I've never ended up thinking there was a mistake that's turned into something nice on the vehicle. They're all steps to get to that final great result that you want to get to. And of course, the real question is espresso or Scotch whiskey. Well, I'll tell you what, VW, espresso or Scotch whiskey, I bet one of the best drinks, and you probably never tried it, is to put your whiskey into your espresso. Try that. There's a drink in Italy that probably not too many people outside of Italy know about, but it's a corretto. It's basically a shot of grappa, 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 put into your espresso, and that really wakes you up pretty well in the morning. Gets your creative juices flowing. So try that. Joseph, hi, Joseph Herbias. How do we enjoy and design automobiles, knowing that they're increasing negative impact on the environment? Because of that, Joseph, I think we have to enjoy and design automobiles that as we develop cars into the future, we know that they're solving the problems that do make them have a negative impact on society. And that's what design is all about. That's why I never agree with the idea that designers are stylists. Designers, true designers, are finding a solution to a problem. They're not just styling something to look good. So oftentimes people say, yeah, you guys are the stylists of a company. No, we're not. The true designers are invaluable to a company because they're thinking about the problem that they have to solve. And the negative impact that you mentioned can be a lot of negative impacts. We're taking up space on the motorways or highways. We're taking up, oxygen. We're polluting and all that. But the constant quest to move design forward in a positive impact is the challenge that we all have as designers. And the designers who don't care about that are probably a little bit selfish, I would say, as calling themselves designers in a profession where the objective is to improve vehicles and not make them less positive for the impact on society. Hope that answers it. Okay, Enrique, do you think that UX, user experience designers, will have more space in the transportation, even being more important than automotive designers in the near future? Surprisingly, maybe, yes. I think the whole concentration of design now in vehicle design is going to shift. Not that exterior design or the look of a car is going to become less important, but what I think is going to become much more important is the environment that we create on the inside of the vehicle, such that, again, knowing that level 5 is still a far ways off, there are still ways to improve the interior and the user experience of a vehicle in such a way, because when we're talking about user experience, we're typically referring to the interior of a vehicle. The outside is what it is. You just have to get into the vehicle and then start to have that UX user experience thing. So I think with the electrification age coming stronger and stronger, and we're having voice activation, we're having things occur typically in an electronic way where you're it's less needed to actually manipulate or manually operate the vehicle. So with the experience and the electrification and simplification of the vehicle, not reducing the content, but actually increasing the content and reducing the complexity of visual complexity is going to be the trick. So user experience is going to be highly, highly important, much more important than it has been in the past, and much more important than it is currently, obviously, to the point where we don't reduce the driving pleasure, because we always, there are people who don't care about the driving pleasure, the actual manual working of an automobile. They enjoy that, that's just a given. You like to control things, but there are also going to be needs to actually decrease the manual input and increase the electronic input or the user experience in a way that you feel less needed in the vehicle. So I think, display units and actual actuation and deactuation of things is going to become increasingly important. So if you're a UX designer out there, the future is bright for you guys in terms of automotive design and vehicle design. Let's see. Next question. Oh, this is Russian. Your thoughts on Chris Bangle era of BMW? Your thoughts on Chris Bangle era of BMW? Does it stand the test of, or has it stood the test of time? And how do you compare it to the modern BMWs? Chris was my boss when I was at BMW, beginning at BMW. Chris was brought in as sort of a rebel in terms of being able to shake up the consistent design language that had been in place at BMW before he came along. Typically, he would say that the 3, 5, and 7 series was basically one sausage, just different lengths. So you would have a small, medium, and large size sausage, and that was about all the difference. And he was brought in to shake that up. He didn't shake it up at the beginning, but we all knew that it was his mission when he started at BMW to start to think about new design languages for a company. And that's going to bring explosive response in any direction from the customer base. So you could split it half and half. There was a whole part of BMW that rebelled, or BMW clientele that rebelled against it and moved off to other companies as their cars of choice. And there was a whole segment of the public that moved in saying, okay, finally BMW is moving on and doing something a little bit risky, and I'm that kind of person, and I identify with it. And they took on the whole flame surfacing design language, if you remember that. And I think the problem with the Bengal era is that it hadn't matured. It was very almost like a flash in the pan at the beginning. It was a big shock. There was no real maturation of the process of changing from one design language to the other. It happened very quickly and shocked a lot of people, and sort of made people, those who rebelled were very vocal about their rebellion of the design language. And again, in the other direction, there were people who liked it. So the test of time is difficult to say again, because I wouldn't say that Bengal's design language is BMW's design language today. It's not. Whether the Bengal butt, if you all know what I'm talking about, on the vehicles that he did on the 7 Series where it began, has been successful. You could say it has because some other companies have copied it, but has it been successful with their brand language? Probably not. So it was a trial into new design direction. He was playing with fire. Some of the cars burned them, maybe. Other ones got a new following. So it kind of evened out at the end, a bit of plus minus, and they met in the middle. So what it did certainly do was shift the impression of what BMWs look like to a different design language. I wouldn't call flame surfacing modern design language, because the modern design language is all about efficiency and simplification. For me, the hardest thing in design is to simplify, not into a simple manner or a predictable manner, but in a way that the content in a vehicle is maintained and the design language gets more difficult through simplification. Just ask Steve Jobs about that, and he'll come back and tell us all about it one day, I hope. How do you feel about the SUV trend making cars bigger and heavier? Yeah, I mean, would you want a 500X, or would you want any of the new Minis today that are not Mini? I wouldn't, simply because I think a small car should stay small and a big car should stay big. You buy them for different reasons, but the way to go from the taking of a small car design to a larger version of it makes absolutely zero sense, in my opinion. Just build another segment for a car that is a bigger size. But why would you want to take a small car and make it bigger? That just seems a reason not to buy that car. Do you think there will be a car as visually pleasing as the F50? Well, that means that you're saying that the F50 is extremely well pleasing. That's it's putting me in the spot to have to say, yeah, it's extremely pleasing, and I don't think that there will ever be a car as pleasing as the F50. I think we'll be a failure as designers if we never make something more pleasing than something that already exists. So I think there will always be a better version of something that already exists. Good question, though, by the way. Okay, we'll go straight back up, and we'll go right here. Pontiac Aztek. Why would a car look so split if multiple personalities? It wasn't a bad car, but shine some light on what it like. The Pontiac Aztek. I hope you guys remember the Pontiac Aztek. Why would a car look so split personalities? It wasn't a bad car, but can you shine light? Yeah, that's bad management, VW. That's bad management in the sense that somebody actually stood behind. Somebody with a lot of responsibility, a lot of power within the Pontiac group or the GM group stood back and said, yes, that is what is going to sell. And I completely think we should throw all those hundreds of millions of pounds or dollars behind the development of that vehicle. Not everybody's a designer. And I think the failure of a lot of big companies and small companies is that they don't put their trust in, or complete trust in, the design team, which I find I do find ridiculous. I have never been asked from a design point of view, call in the designer, the head of design, and ask him what he thinks about the financial budget this year of our company or the production. Why do you call somebody in who's not an expert in this field, who the CEO or whoever stood back behind the Pontiac Aztek and said, yep, we're going with that one, no matter what you guys think? I don't really think designers were very excited designing that car. I think they probably went in with a bit of trembling and hoping that was the car they didn't pick, and they did pick it and they got stuffed. So what my point is here is that the designers are typically well trained. They know their stuff. They're hired because they're good. And so all companies, if they want to be a success, knowing that design sells and can be a disaster if the design doesn't sell, if the design isn't well accepted, then they should put the money where the mouth is. Let the designers make the decisions on the design. Let the financial guy make the decisions on the budget. Let the marketing guy run the marketing department, and let the engineering director figure out how to build it. But don't have somebody come in with the power of responsibility to tell the group that this is the design, when we know all from a design point of view, the Pontiac Aztek is probably one of the biggest failures in car design. Not criticizing the designers, I'm criticizing the decision of somebody who was probably not a designer to make that final decision on a badly designed vehicle. Completely out of proportion. Nothing makes sense on the design for me. From I guess a design point of view, it's just not the right kind of car to bring to the market. Concept car, sure, but not as a real car. MG Katravinsky, when looking for inspirations, would car designers investigate non-visual objects, e.g. music and literature? Absolutely. I mean, in terms of music, if you know about Beethoven, and not just Beethoven, Mozart, all these guys, the guys who produced what we still consider timeless music. I mean, that's one of the things we can certainly say is timeless. Classical music done at the level that these guys were able to compose and make that kind of music. They applied, believe it or not, 1.618 to the ratio of their music, which is the golden law of proportion. So that applies in so many other things in life. We know it applies, we can measure it in so many things. Obviously in design and nature, it's applicable. But like you said, in poetry, in music, we find a ratio that is that ratio I'm speaking about. It's a proportional ratio. And that tends to make music sound good. It's well made. I mean, we might not understand it from our limited point of view, who are not experts in that field, but there is a lot of application of that kind of influence of well done music, well scripted verses, anything like that. There's a combination or commonality to those professions. So yes, I do agree in that. Ennio, how do you feel about Apple getting into automobiles? Do you think their design language could extend to cars as well? That's an interesting one. How do I feel about Apple getting into automobiles? I don't think Apple would get into automobiles unless they felt they were going to be a success. It would be too dangerous for them to risk, the reputation that they have doing a vehicle that wouldn't make a positive impact. So they'll bring in, probably from a software point of view, some very, very interesting things that we haven't thought about in design from an industrial point of view. But I think their design language moving into cars, they would have to be very careful about not trying to make the design of the iPhone have four wheels, if that makes any sense. Nobody wants to drive in a car that has zero personality. It's kind of like, there probably is a market for that, where you just don't want to be recognized or valued or seen as somebody who basically doesn't have a design. I mean, we all wear clothes that are unique to us, that we like, and we wear things, accessories that are things that we like, and a car is just basically an extension of your personality. So if you're driving around in a car that has a very, very basic look to it, there will be people that appeals to. But I think the secret of Apple's success is that they are able to refine a design slightly in such a way that it appeals to a huge, huge volume of people around the world. Nobody criticizes Apple products for looking bad. So it's kind of like Sony, the products that are universally accepted as being beautiful for what they are. But again, there's that simplicity, complex simplicity, I would call it, that makes those products beautiful. So again, I don't know what an Apple car would look like. I just hope that they bring enough character into the design that makes it appealing. It's kind of hard to think that product design and car design are the same thing. I don't feel they are. I think car design carries a higher emotional content because it's so much more of a product than basically a tool like what we get from Apple in terms of a product that does a job. I think car design is a little bit more complex, and we need to always remember the emotional, the sensorial impact of a car in all the sensorial aspects, the five senses. Good. Toblerone 7. Do you feel like the new cars of today have lost their individual character, becoming too generic in design and use? No, absolutely not. I think the problem is that cars are trying, or design studios are being pushed to make cars that are more unique than they ever have been before. And that's why you see these things like the Cybertruck or a lot of the Japanese companies, European, all the companies seem to be now designing cars that are not really what the designers themselves like, I would imagine. I can't imagine designing cars that are trying too hard. They're trying to make a statement that is designing for design's sake. They're very aggressive. Not all cars are looking aggressive these days, but there seems to be a trend to make cars have more impactful front end faces, more wacky proportions, more unique looking taillights, more things to talk about on the side of the crease lines on the side of the body that just don't go anywhere. Kind of like a maze where if you find a line and you try to follow it around the body, it takes you to another direction. And then you think it's going to go in that direction, and then it takes you to another direction. Like a M-A-Z-E, maze. You get lost looking at a lot of lines on the cars, and that in itself just seems a very confused design language for me. It's almost like, I've said it before, ugly is the new beautiful, not in a detrimental way or insulting way, but non-aesthetic or unaesthetical beauty seems to be gaining momentum in a certain way. It's not the kind of beauty that you want to have around for the rest of your life. If you had to have that product for more than a couple of years, you might start pulling your hair out and looking elsewhere. So yeah, cars are not starting to look the same. I think they're starting to look very different, but they're being pushed that way, and they're turning into design again for design's sake. So I don't like that. Vibhav Sharma, will you ever design a motorcycle? I just finished designing one the other week. Yeah, I love motorcycles. It's always been a passion of mine since I was a teenager, and I've gotten heavily involved in all aspects of motorcycles and racing and design. So I have done that. I worked with BMW, also in their motorcycle design department for a short period, and was involved on the K1200, I think it was, project, and that was just an experiment, and it didn't go well on my side, so I don't want to talk about it. But I love motorcycles, and I would love to design a motorcycle. I think it would just have to be probably pushing the boundaries now in terms of what motorcycles look like, because obviously the electrical era of propulsion is coming to motorcycles now, and that means that you can do quite a few different things than what is normally done in motorcycle design these days. What are your thoughts on the Ferrari SF90 Stradale? Yeah, that's a touchy one too, because it's Ferrari trying something a little bit different, and Ferrari's got a lot of great cars in their past that are Ferrari's reputation for design is changing now. Flavio Manzoni, who's one of my big inspiration. I mean, he's younger than me, but he's one of the guys in the field that I think is probably at the top of his profession in terms of producing absolutely stunning vehicles. Flavio's a great guy. I worked with him in my Fiat Group days, and I really respected his work. And he's grabbed the bull by the horns at Ferrari, and he's sort of shaken it. And now he's doing a new thing for Ferrari. They're becoming quite a bit different than the, say, old language that Ferrari used to use, which was all about sensual beauty and, very Italian-esque looking design, very sensual and sexy and all that. But the new language is changing from that, and they are pushing a few different buttons in terms of public acceptance on the new design language. But the SF90 is kind of, for me, like a little experiment that they've done. It's not a high volume vehicle, obviously, so they can try, dipping their toes into bit different design waters for Ferrari, and I respect them for that. You ask any designer what they feel about something, they'll find something good and something bad. So I can't say 100% I like it, but also it's not a mistake. So it's a good attempt by Flavio and crew to design a new Ferrari with a design that is maybe modern sexy, I guess you could say. It's kind of like a new look on beauty for Ferrari, and probably testing now what the reactions are so they can know if they want to put the pedal down to the metal on that kind of design language or back off a little bit. So it's for me, it's a test. It's a nice looking car, but again, I'd have to say there are things I don't like about it. But again, that's my point of view. Next question is, I'm 30 and I have lost enthusiasm for my tech job. People around me always said that I have an artistic talent. Is it too late for me to study and then find work as a designer? Depends on how you think. Lesla Angelo. I mean, if you're an old man at 30, then you shouldn't be a designer. You have to be a young man at 60 and you can still be a designer. In the terms of the way you think, I don't mean old. I mean your brain as a designer, as a good designer, I think has to stay very young your whole life. You can't think like an old person, because that is just not the way design works. So if you feel very young in mind and body and creative, and you have all kinds of great ideas that you haven't seen done before, and you have that ability to put them on paper and design, don't worry about computers at the moment. If I get a request for a position, a job, people looking for a position under me, I don't care if they can use a computer so much as if they can draw. Seriously, because the computer only makes things better or helps you to take something to a next level. But the important thing is, if you can sketch well and you don't feel that at the age of 30, you have to learn how to draw in perspective, because vehicle drawing, transportation, cars design, that is one of the most difficult things that you can learn to draw. A car is not like a person. It is hard to draw a car that doesn't look like it had an accident. So if you can draw a car that represents your best ideas and you have great ideas, it's not too late at 30, but you have to be, like I said earlier on, super dedicated, super focused to be a car designer, and not just a car designer. You have to shoot to the top, because why else would you do it? Next question. Not sure what the next question is. What is the video? What are your thoughts? No, I talked about that one. We're now moving to, one second. We're on a flow. Now we're just trying to find the right question. I'm looking through your questions, guys, and trying to find one that'll reach out to more people. Are there any features on any ones that weren't approved by the bean counters? Kind of mentioned that already, but where are we in the next question? What do you think of the new? Which is the question?
Could you send some designs?
Could we send you some designs and ask for opinions? Sohum Sapra, you've just yes. Could we send you some designs and ask for opinions? Okay. I would very much welcome that you do that, and I've just made a video that will come out shortly, asking you precisely to do that. So anybody out there that wants, I don't want to say it, but a professional critique in a certain way, a guy who's got a bit of experience and has gone down the path of getting beat up in the car design world and then having a few successes, I would offer very kindly or welcomely, I would offer you my opinions on your work. So obviously, if I get flooded with thousands of designs, I probably wouldn't be able to do every single one of them, but I will have a few guys help me out to pick out the ones that are the ones that we want to select and make a critique about. So yes, please, if you're a designer out there, you're watching this, you're a car designer, you're a yacht designer, you're a vehicle designer, you're a product designer, anything like that, furniture design, because believe me, my interests aren't just cars and motorcycles. I'm completely into architecture, yacht design, furniture design, fashion design, graphic design, environmental design, all that kind of design stuff is what keeps me going, getting me up in the morning and curious about the day ahead of me. So yes, please submit any designs you want to what I think might be attached somewhere along here as an address to send your designs into. I will help to select the ones that are most interesting to look at and to critique, and I will do that online live so that we can have a fun time together going through the designs. I will have a matchbox or a fire lighter with me in case I really don't like the design, because I was subjected to that kind of treatment. My designs were burned by the professor many times in my years of university. It makes you cry, but you have to develop thick skin at some point. Next question. Is BMW's huge grid kidney grille a good step forward for the company? Many people have mixed opinions about it, and I would love your opinion. That's coming. So I don't want to give you the answer to that directly here, Caleb Khan. But the huge grid kidney grille, we all know what people... I mean, I've read good opinions and I've read bad opinions. I'm only going to give you my opinions, and I'm going to justify or try to justify my opinions of the huge BMW kidney grille, which on the 4 Series, we're talking about the G22. So that's the current 4 Series that is just coming out now based on the concept 4 that they showed last year. So anyways, that grille is a topic in itself. So I think just a one-off answer, do I like it or not, is a bit superficial here. I have to go into the reasons why my opinion is what it is on that design. You might be a little bit surprised, but I can't give away the answer yet till the video comes out. Next question is Juan Manuel Tastian. ¿Qué auto crees que sería imposible de hacer con las regulaciones que hay hoy en día? Si hay alguna cosa del diseño que no te gustaría. Okay, or que no puedes. Sorry, Juan Manuel, you're probably Spanish. I'll say it in English. What car do you feel would be impossible to do with current regulations, and any favorite design feature you can't do anymore? What car design do you feel you couldn't do? There's not much that you can't do in car design as long as it passes legislation. But the important thing to remember that legislation is only there in place to raise safety standards as we evolve in the evolution of car design. Everything has to become safer, and you can say that that's going. It's exaggerated now that cars don't have to be that safe and things, and that we should have that freedom to design things that we want rather than have to make them homologable and certifiable. But the truth is, as a designer, you're always going to face compromise. You're always going to face a frame around your project, in the sense that you have to stay within that frame. And that is what's fun about design, working within these border lines that you have to stay within. You want to be improving the vehicle all the time, and they don't put these regulations in place for you to not be able to design a beautiful car. That's why they pay you the big bucks in design, is to overcome these challenges in a way that you make the design desirable. So I accept the legislation. I don't try to rebel against it. Look at registration license plate placements on cars. A lot of designers will just leave the license plate out to the very last minute. Where am I going to put the license plate or the reg plate on the car? And then they just tack it onto the front of the car somewhere, and it looks like a last-minute idea. The design of the license plate is just a given. Whether it's a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, or a Ford, you have to consider every piece of legislation to bring that car to the market in such a way that you're presenting a safe car. And that's what regulation is in place for, is to do that. So there's nothing I would want to design that is outside of the rules of regulation. C-Pro Racing. 5 minutes. Right. C-Pro, well, I'm not tired yet, but Yeah. Okay. My boss is telling me I don't have much time left. I have to go to bed. C Pro Racing. No. Oh, just nice to acknowledge your work. Thank you. Oh, all right. No Q. Just nice to acknowledge your work. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, C Pro Racing. Glad to hear that you like it and that you've got that kind of input just to put your message up here. Much appreciated. That's really nice of you. Really appreciate that. Attila Sette, did you chat with Ron Dennis after P1 success? Just curious after what you said in the documentary. Here's a funny one. I haven't really watched the documentary that much to remember that I even said something like that. I've watched it twice. Believe it or not, when you watch your own self on screen, it's excruciating. It's a very well done documentary. I have to say, Helena Cohen has done, and crew and Salon Pictures. Everybody has done a great job on it, but I don't like to watch it. So getting away from, I don't like to watch it because it's me on the screen, believe it or not. But what did I say to Ron Dennis, or has he replied after the P1? I'm trying to recall. I just remembered that when Ron saw the car for the first time, his jaw dropped, and I thought that was a great reaction, but it dropped out of fright that this was going to be the car that signaled McLaren's return to super high performance vehicles in the sort of the direction of the F1, but it wasn't meant to be an F1 replacement. But you have to say that Ron, I think everybody at McLaren responsible for the design and development and engineering and sales of the car have to concede that it was an absolute success and the perfect car for McLaren's return into that segment, the hypercar segment, where strangely enough, there were 3 cars in that segment that appeared at the same time in history, much like the great inventions in humanity all seem to come at the same time. The holy trinity of the Porsche 918 and the Ferrari LaFerrari and the McLaren F1 P1 all appeared at the same time, and it's anybody's a guess or opinion which is the best one of them all. Again, it's just subjective from a performance point of view and a styling point of view or a design point of view. But I would say that the important thing to remember is that McLaren put a big stake in the ground design-wise and performance-wise with the P1, and that anybody who criticizes the P1 for anything is probably doesn't know what they're talking about or is just looking to be provoking. So I love the P1. I think it's a car that will stand the test of time. It probably will be on Pebble Beach lawn in 50 years' time. And I think its legacy is definitely established, and Ron can only be proud of it. And I would put my hand in the fire to say that, to think that that's the way he would think. Thanks for your answer. Thank you, Juan Manuel. Pop-up headlights are gone. Weird, you got to translate since I wrote it. I didn't get it. I was doing quick translation there, Juan Manuel. Juanma. I was translating it quickly because I thought you were probably Spanish. No worries. So it's raining in Houston, guys. Yes, Audi is a fantastic company. But I tell you what, look at any current Audi and tell me they're not getting too busy with the design on the language of the mostly, I was going to say mostly on the side. The front is getting busier, the sides are getting busier, and the rear is getting busier. I think they have to take a chill pill at Audi, and they have a great design team there. But I think they have to calm down in the studio because the designs are getting a little bit too origami-like. There are a lot of creases going on. They're again professionally done. I like to say professionally done because it is a great team, but they need to calm down a little bit on the amount of surface entertainment on that vehicle. Hi, Adam, and you have 11 BMW X5s, or 2011 probably X5 and Mini Cooper owner. I really appreciate your works. I hate the new huge grille trend. Yeah, do you mean the beaver teeth or the kind of things that look like beaver teeth on the huge grille on BMW? Because they don't have the biggest grille out there. I mean, there's a Toyota out there with the front end is basically a grille. If you look at it, there's no pretty much any surface between the headlight and the grille or anywhere else. It's just one massive grille in the front. So check out that I'm sure you know what I'm talking about on the Toyota. Your videos and insight are some of the best content on YouTube. Thanks very much. I'll never see the taillights of Mini Coopers the same again. Yeah, true. I mean, I told you that was impossible to make. You look at any car today except one or two that I don't want to tell you, but they're so exclusive that they kind of are the exception. But there are really hardly any cars out there that have the tail light separated, the rear light separated away from the cut line of the trunk or the tailgate. So for certain reasons, but obviously that when we did it was hugely revolutionary to produce it in a modern method. Obviously the older cars have it, but they weren't produced the way we produce cars today. So that's your answer, I hope, Daniel. And yeah, I hope Mini Coopers and all the taillights on the future Minis stay with the design theme that we established, which is kind of that vertical look and not the horizontal look that I've seen on some of their vehicles at the moment. Yeah. Michelangelo draw cars. Hello, Michelangelo. Hello, sir. What do you think about Mitja Bork? Is the hexagon-driven design at Lamborghini good for the brand, or even fitting for modern times? Again, Michelangelo, it can go one way or the other. I mean, they have to establish themselves with a unique design language, and they have to push it as much as they can. So I think whatever they're doing in terms of going for this hexagon that you mentioned look is okay with me. I mean, it's they have their customers who like that. Lamborghini stands out for specifically that origami type design language where everything looks a bit folded and aggressive, but that fits Lamborghini. Could you imagine a Lamborghini today that didn't have that look? So again, what Mitja is doing there at Lamborghini is a great job, and he's just keeping the fire burning there. So good. My gosh, the Francisco Garcia Rodriguez, what do you think about the Fiat Brava taillights? Bravo or Brava? Because I remember we had a differentiation between the two, but the Brava had the banana taillights. I remember the three taillights on either side that were stacked on top of each other. And I think that was pretty advanced for its time. If you guys want to know what we're talking about, Fiat Brava is a car that was done back in the, when was that car? Early 2000s, maybe. Yeah, probably around in that era there. But the Brava had three taillights on either side of the car. They were like stacked bananas. I kind of liked it because it was unique. So no problem with that. Favorite era of car? The next era, cop out. But I think the favorite era of car for me specifically is between the 50s, mid 50s to the mid 60s, I would say, even to the late 60s, up to when we got the Miura, the Dino, the Miura. Those cars were highly emotional designs. I loved them. They were coming back in the mid 50s. What I liked was they were coming out of the war, and a lot of enthusiasm was brought back into car design. I mean, every era has a great design period. It's just the ones that stand out are the ones that really made an impact on car design. And the emotional side is what I love about car design. So the 50s and 60s were happy times for car design. Yes.
Last question.
Okay, last question. Julian Gonzalez. Frank, could you shed a light on how your work intertwines with that of the development engineers? Who often makes the most compromises in that balance? Depends, Julian, on the company, because the bread and butter companies have to make money, and they have to achieve more compromises in terms of what they can bring. So bread and butter companies, in the most positive way that I can express that, are the companies that sell the highest volume cars and don't rock the boat. So what you try to do with a bread and butter company is find that distinct, that compromise that allows you to generate the largest sales. So with the higher end, you're gonna have a lot more flexibility with the engineers, because it's their duty at the high end to produce cars that are very unique and bringing new solutions to the market. So If you're going to work at the high end, it's a lot more fun because the engineers are on your side. They understand the pressures of delivering something new to the market. Whereas when you're working at the lower end, the more high volume companies, it's not so much about delivering cutting edge technology. It's about quality, knowing that what you're bringing to the market will be consistent and not breaking down. So you want to produce great products and you want to sell a lot of them. So the engineers are going to put a lot of pressure on you, but also the financial experts are going to put a lot of pressure on you. So from a design point of view, you're compromising more at the lower end than you are at the high end.
Stop
asking.
Say good night, Frank.
Oh, please stop asking me questions or you'll stay on here forever.
Say good night.
Hi, Nona Gatsaeva. Please stop. Oh, Nona, I just missed your question. It just passed. Good night. Everybody's telling me to good night. So I haven't been speaking. It's somebody behind me that's repeating what I'm saying. So, okay, guys, I'm really sorry.
Last time, just promote the sketches.
Promote the sketches. So there'll be a address, guys, down below. I could talk. Believe me, I could talk all night about this and wait till the last guy signs off. But because it's my life, I really love what I do, and I just can't get enough of it. No, sorry, guys. I know we're all getting tired. So what I'll do is I'll sign off here, and what I'll do is make sure that there's a link down below. So any of you who are interested in looking at the sketches or maybe bidding on them, please do. It's going to a great cause, not a good cause, a great cause that's going to benefit everybody in the world, parents and children mostly, obviously, that have this terrible problem and disease that afflicts so many of the people that we don't even know about, most of the people that have it. So please do look at the sketches if you like them, bid on them. And again, there's a slight surprise that I'm adding a bonus to those sketches, which is a refined version where I didn't just spend 5 minutes sketching for the video, but I took my time to do them really nice and keep that same feel, but basically putting my best efforts into them to make you very happy if you're able to have them or hanging in your home. So good luck on that, everybody. I wish you a lot of success and on the bidding side of that. And I hope I've been able to inform you a little bit more about the design side of things and answer your questions. There's just so many questions I won't be able to reach, but again, send the questions in, send your work in, and I'll do my best to critique your works, and we'll come up with a video that goes online and shows you a direct live critique of that work. And yeah, I look forward to it. Thank you so much, guys, for staying online for so long, for so many questions. I'll have to go back in and find some other good questions to personally answer, but thank you very much. And they're going to cut me off. I'm sorry. Talk to you soon.